The hall of the alien university was vast, carved from living crystal that glowed with pale blue light. Hundreds of cadets sat in tiered rows, their scales, fur, and plated skin gleaming under the illumination. The lecture was considered one of the most important in the Empire, the final laws of physics. At the front of the hall, their teacher stood tall. His name was Master Velrek, an elder of the Quan race. His species had studied the cosmos for thousands of years, and their discoveries were carved into the foundations of galactic science. To most cadets, Velrek's word was law itself. Velrek tapped his staff against the stone floor. "Listen well," he said, his deep voice echoing. "The universe is not a mystery anymore. We have uncovered its limits. We know what can be done and what cannot. There is no frontier left in physics. What we teach here is the end." A ripple of respectful murmurs passed through the students. Some nodded. Some scribbled notes. But in the middle row sat a single human, quiet and unmoving. His name was Daniel Cross, the only student from Earth accepted into this academy. Velrek noticed him and smiled, not kindly, but with mockery. "And yet," the teacher said, his voice suddenly sharp, "some still cling to old illusions. Some claim that a species like humanity, small and new, could discover truths we have missed." He laughed, the sound like cracking stone. "Primitive dreams. Humans barely reached the stars. And now they think they understand physics better than us?" The cadets around Daniel burst into laughter. A scaled student leaned over and hissed, "He means you, human." Another added, "Your people still play with toys while we shape galaxies." Daniel's jaw tightened. He did not look at them. He kept his eyes fixed on the teacher, his fists clenched beneath the desk. His silence only made the laughter louder. Velrek lifted his staff again. "Listen well, young ones. Physics is complete. The laws are eternal. Faster than light travel is impossible. Energy cannot be created from nothing. Space cannot be folded. Those who claim otherwise are fools. And Earth is full of such fools." The hall echoed with cruel amusement. Students whispered, mocking Earth's rockets, Earth's small colonies, Earth's short history among the stars. To them, humans were children playing in a game too vast for them to understand. But inside Daniel's chest burned a secret fire, because he knew something none of them did, something his teacher could never imagine. Back on Earth, far from this cold hall, humanity had discovered a truth hidden between the cracks of known science. They had pushed past the limits aliens called eternal. They had built a machine that bent reality itself. And while the galaxy mocked them, humans were readying it in silence. Daniel remembered the words of his own mentor on Earth, a scientist named Dr. Elaine Torres. She had whispered to him before he left for the Alien Academy, "Let them laugh, Daniel. Let them believe we are weak. The less they suspect, the longer we can prepare. But one day when the time is right, they will see who was wrong." Her words echoed now in his mind. Velrek's lecture continued, his voice filling the chamber like thunder. "So let this be known, physics has no surprises left. You are the inheritors of perfect knowledge. Do not waste your time chasing human delusions." The cadets cheered. They believed him fully. Why wouldn't they? The Quan had ruled science for centuries. Every empire accepted their words as unshakable truth. Who would dare to challenge them? Daniel's fingers dug into his palms until his nails drew blood. He kept his head down, not giving them the satisfaction of his anger. But his silence was not weakness. It was a vow. One cadet, a tall insectoid with gleaming mandibles, leaned close and clicked mockingly. "Do humans cry when they learn the truth, Daniel? Or do they just keep pretending their fairy tales are real?" Daniel finally looked at him, his eyes steady, his voice quiet. "The truth doesn't care who laughs." The insectoid sneered but leaned back, unsettled by the calm in Daniel's tone. Velrek banged his staff again, silencing the whispers. "Remember, class, no one will ever move faster than light. To think otherwise is a childish dream." Daniel's heart pounded, because on Earth right now ships were being tested that had already shattered that rule. Humanity had done the impossible. The teacher raised his arms, his cloak flowing. "This is the final law. Etch it into your minds. Repeat after me. Nothing can move faster than light." The cadets obeyed, chanting in unison, "Nothing can move faster than light." Daniel did not join them. He stared straight ahead, lips pressed shut. Velrek noticed. His eyes narrowed. "Do you refuse, human? Do you doubt the wisdom of the ages?" The room grew tense. All eyes turned to Daniel. For a long moment he said nothing. Then slowly he looked up at the teacher, his voice quiet but unshaken. Maybe the ages were wrong. Gasps filled the hall. Laughter followed quickly, sharp and mocking like knives thrown from every side. The cadets clutched their sides, tears in their alien eyes as if Daniel's words were the funniest thing they had ever heard. Velrek only smiled coldly. Arrogant child. Perhaps one day you will learn humility. Daniel lowered his gaze again, but inside he was calm, because he already knew the truth. Back on Earth, the engines were humming. The ships were waiting. The galaxy had no idea, and soon, very soon, the universe would hear humanity's answer. The laughter from the alien lecture hall still echoed in Daniel Cross's mind hours later as he walked alone through the towering spires of the Academy City. The night sky above was not Earth's gentle blue, but a swirl of violet and silver, pierced by the light of 3 moons. Alien ships glided silently in the distance, their hulls glittering with crystal veins. Everywhere Daniel went, whispers followed him. Cadets pointed, sneered, or simply laughed behind their hands. To them, he was a fool from a backwater world, a reminder of how far above humanity they believed themselves to be. But Daniel walked with quiet purpose. Their mockery no longer stung. It only fueled him. Because he knew a secret they didn't. Back on Earth, in hidden laboratories buried deep beneath mountains, humanity had discovered something extraordinary. A truth about the universe that the elder species had overlooked, or perhaps dismissed too quickly. It was not a simple tool, not a small invention. It was a crack in reality itself. Daniel remembered the first time he had seen it, the resonance chamber, a sphere of humming metal plates, each etched with patterns that looked almost alive. When activated, the chamber did not merely vibrate, it sang. Space around it shimmered like water under sunlight. Instruments screamed with impossible readings. For a heartbeat, the distance between 2 points bent, folded, and kissed. It was not a trick. It was not a dream. It was space itself bending to human hands. Aliens said faster than light travel could never exist. But humans had already tested it. Not with full fleets, not yet, but with probes that vanished from Earth orbit and reappeared near the moons of Jupiter in a blink. With unmanned craft that folded across the solar system in seconds, the experiments were dangerous, unstable, costly. Many had failed. Some machines were torn apart, shredded into dust as reality itself refused their touch. But each failure taught humanity more. Each broken piece brought them closer. The scientists called it resonance folding. The military gave it another name, the whisper, because when it worked, when a ship slipped between 2 points, the only sound in the chamber was a faint whisper, as if the universe itself exhaled, just for humanity. Daniel could never forget that sound. As he walked through the alien city, his comm bead pulsed. He slipped it into his ear, checking to make sure no one watched. A voice, soft and urgent, filled his mind. Daniel, the voice said. It was Dr. Elaine Torres, the scientist who had first shown him the whisper. We received your message. The aliens mock us as expected. That is good. The less they believe, the stronger our surprise will be. Daniel slowed his steps, ducking into the shadow of a stone archway. They think physics is complete, he whispered. They chant it like a prayer. They laugh at us every day. Let them, Torres said. They will not laugh when they see. Our first manned test is ready. The Dauntless leaves orbit tomorrow. Daniel's heart jumped. Tomorrow? Already? Yes, Torres said. Her voice shook slightly, not with fear but with awe. If it succeeds, the world will change forever. The aliens will never be able to deny us again. But, Daniel, if it fails, we lose everything. A single mistake could rip the ship apart, or worse. Daniel closed his eyes, leaning against the cold stone wall. He could almost hear the teacher's laughter in his memory, the cadets' cruel voices ringing in his ears. They thought Earth was a joke. They thought humanity was small. But tomorrow that illusion might end. I'll be ready, Daniel said softly. Tell the crew of the Dauntless. Tell them they're not just flying for Earth, they're flying for the future. Torres's voice softened. We will, stay silent. Do not reveal yourself. When the time is right, we will show them. The comm bead clicked off. Daniel stood in the shadows for a long moment, staring at the alien sky. His heart pounded with a mix of fear and pride. Humanity had taken a step no one believed possible. They had whispered to the universe, and the universe had whispered back, but he also knew the risk. If the Dauntless succeeded, Earth would rise in glory. But if it failed, humanity would remain a joke, laughed at for centuries, their boldness forgotten as arrogance. The next morning, news spread across the Academy of the Grand War Games, soon to be held near the human sector. The Academy buzzed with excitement. Word had spread like wildfire. The Galactic War Games were announced. It was not a real war, but a grand contest, a chance for the most powerful empires to display their fleets and test their strategies. Every year it drew billions of viewers across the stars. For the cadets it was more than entertainment. It was proof of strength, proof of supremacy. The older races, the Quan, the Talari, the Myran, always dominated. Their fleets were vast, their weapons devastating. Watching them was like watching gods at play. And this year the games would be held near the human sector. Master Velrek made the announcement with his usual booming pride. The empires will gather in the Kylus expanse. There you will see true physics at work, the laws of the universe in perfect form. Pay close attention, for no human ship will appear. They have been invited only as observers. Nothing more. The hall roared with laughter. Some students clapped their claws or stamped their hooves in amusement. Daniel sat silent as always, but inside something shifted. His heart pounded. He knew the Dauntless was leaving orbit. He knew humanity was ready to test the Whisper on the largest stage possible. That night he walked through the quiet corridors of the Academy. The crystal walls glowed faintly, casting pale light across his face. In his ear the comm bead pulsed again. "Daniel," Dr. Torres whispered. Her voice was steady, but Daniel could hear the exhaustion beneath it. "The Dauntless has completed her first jump. From Earth to the edge of the Kuiper Belt. Perfect resonance. No structural damage." Daniel stopped in his tracks. He pressed his palm against the cold wall. "It worked, truly?" "Yes," Torres said. "We will not announce it, not yet. But the ship is ready to enter the war games. Command believes the time has come. The galaxy mocks us. They think we are weak. Tomorrow they will learn otherwise." Daniel's breath caught. "But if they see what we have, won't they unite against us? The Quan, the Talari, the others, they will fear us." "They will," Torres admitted. "But fear is better than mockery. At least fear keeps enemies cautious. If we remain silent, they will keep pressing us, treating us as children. The Council has decided this is our moment." Daniel's chest tightened. The weight of history pressed down on him. He thought of his teacher's words. Nothing can move faster than light. Tomorrow the galaxy might see that lie shatter in front of billions of witnesses. The next day, the cadets and teachers were herded into the Academy's grand amphitheater. The ceiling was a dome of crystal, projecting a live feed from the Kylus expanse. There hundreds of ships gathered, their hulls glowing with banners and insignias. Each vessel was massive, bristling with weapons, shining with power. The cadets cheered as the Talari plasma cruisers lined up, their engines sparking with blue fire. They gasped at the Myran dreadnoughts, long and sharp, like floating blades of obsidian. The Quan ships drifted at the center, proud and heavy, their hulls etched with runes of victory from past wars. Velrek raised his staff. "Behold the galaxy's finest. The humans are present, but only as spectators. Their ships are too small, their technology too weak. They will watch and learn as they should." Daniel sat among the cadets, silent, his eyes locked on the display. His hands shook beneath his desk, because he knew Earth had not come to watch. The war games began. Plasma bolts lit up the void, streaks of energy cutting across the black. Gravity bombs pulsed, bending space into shimmering waves. The cadets gasped and cheered at every explosion, every maneuver. It was a storm of color and destruction, the display of power the games were famous for. Then, as the fleets clashed, something unexpected happened. A small shape appeared at the edge of the field. At first, no one noticed. It was tiny compared to the massive alien dreadnoughts, a simple gray vessel with no ornate hull, no glowing banners. Just a ship, plain and silent, drifting into the battlefield. A murmur spread through the amphitheater. "Whose ship is that? It bears no crest. Too small. Is it a drone?" Velrek frowned, his eyes narrowing. "Identify that vessel." A voice from the broadcast confirmed. "Unregistered." "Origin Earth," gasps filled the hall. The cadets turned toward Daniel at once, their faces twisted with disbelief. Some laughed, others jeered. Velrek's lips curled in disdain. A human vessel. How absurd. They dare to enter the games? Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears. He did not move. He did not speak. But inside his heart screamed. The alien fleets reacted quickly. HFY battleship transmitted a warning. Human craft, you are in restricted space. Retreat immediately or we will fire. For a moment, silence. The human ship drifted, calm, unmoving. Then, without warning, the alien battleship fired. A beam of green plasma streaked across the void, cutting toward the small vessel. The cadets leaned forward eagerly, waiting to see the human craft incinerated in a single blast. But the human ship did not burn. It vanished. The plasma beam struck empty space. The ship reappeared miles away, whole and untouched. Gasps ripped through the amphitheater. Some cadets shouted. Others clutched at their seats. Velrek's staff slipped from his fingers and clattered to the floor. Daniel sat still, his face calm, but his heart roared like thunder. The whisper had spoken. The human ship had bent space itself. The Kalis expanse exploded with light as alien weapons fired across the void. Warships clashed in choreographed fury, plasma bolts burning against shields, gravity bombs rippling space in waves of distortion. It was meant to be a show of supremacy, a dance of power for the whole galaxy to admire. But no one was watching the main fleets anymore. Every eye was locked on the small, grey ship drifting at the edge of the battlefield. The human vessel had no banners, no glowing emblems, no intricate alien craftsmanship. It was plain, almost crude compared to the gleaming dreadnoughts and cruisers. To the onlookers, it looked like a child's toy floating among giants. And yet it had just done the impossible. When the HFY battleship's plasma beam fired, the human ship had not dodged. It had not shielded itself. It had simply vanished, then reappeared miles away, unharmed, as if the laws of space had bent around it. The amphitheater inside the alien academy was silent. Hundreds of cadets, once so eager to laugh, now sat frozen. Their eyes were wide, their jaws tight. Some whispered in disbelief, others muttered excuses. An illusion, one hissed. A trick, another said quickly. It must be. But Daniel Cross knew better. His fists were clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. He had seen this before, back on Earth, in the resonance chamber. He knew what the ship had done. It had folded reality. It had whispered through the void. Master Velrek broke the silence, his voice shaking with anger. It is nothing but deceit. They use holograms, sensor jamming, lies to pretend they are strong. The HFY fleet will end this game. In the Kalis expanse, the HFY commander issued another warning. Human craft, cease your interference. Withdraw or be destroyed. The human vessel gave no reply. Velrek smirked, regaining some of his composure. They are fools. They believe one trick will save them. The HFY fired again, unleashing a storm of energy blasts. This time the entire amphitheater leaned forward. Plasma rained down on the tiny ship, a flood of destruction no vessel could survive. The cadets cheered, certain the human ship would be reduced to ash. But once again, the ship did not fall. It blinked, gone in one heartbeat, reappearing in another place untouched. Shots tore through the space it had once occupied, hitting nothing. The crowd gasped louder this time. Even Velrek's voice faltered, and then, for the first time, the human ship attacked. It fired a single shot, a thin beam of white light. Compared to the alien weapons, it looked weak, almost laughable. But when it struck the HFY battleship, the effect was instant and devastating. The massive dreadnought split in half. Not from fire, not from explosion, but as though invisible hands had torn space itself through the ship's core. Both halves drifted apart silently, their systems dead, their crew stunned into silence. The amphitheater erupted in chaos. Cadets shouted in disbelief. Some stood. Others stumbled back as though the strike had hit them personally. Velrek's face drained of color. His lips moved soundlessly before he managed to whisper, "Impossible." But Daniel Cross knew the truth. It was not impossible. It was physics, revealed and wielded by humanity alone. In the Kalis expanse, panic rippled through the fleets. The Talari plasma cruisers shifted formation, trying to surround the human ship. The Miren dreadnoughts targeted it with gravity bombs. Every empire wanted to prove their dominance, to crush the upstart vessel before it embarrassed them all. But the human craft danced among them like a ghost. Each time weapons locked, it vanished. Each time a fleet closed in, it reappeared behind them. Then another white beam fired. And another. each one precise, each one devastating. A Talari cruiser folded in on itself, collapsing as though swallowed by invisible jaws. A marine destroyer snapped into fragments, its hull twisted beyond repair. It was not just victory, it was humiliation. The amphitheater became a storm of voices. "What is this? They cannot, this cannot. Physics does not allow this." Velrek slammed his staff against the floor, but the crack in his voice betrayed him. "Silence! It is a trick, a fraud." But no one listened. The human ship had shattered centuries of certainty in a matter of minutes. Daniel sat still, but his eyes burned. His people had been mocked, dismissed, laughed at. Now the galaxy was watching. The amphitheater was silent, except for the hum of the broadcast. Thousands of cadets stared upward at the dome, their faces lit by the terrible glow of wrecked ships drifting in the Kylus expanse, where moments ago they had laughed at humanity's weakness. Now their laughter had curdled into disbelief and fear. The human ship, dauntless, moved calmly through the battlefield. Its plain grey hull reflected no banners, carried no ancient marks of glory. And yet dreadnoughts, cruisers and destroyers, all emblems of galactic power, lay crippled in its wake. Every eye turned toward Master Velrek. The elder teacher stood rigid, his claws clenched, his face pale beneath his scaled skin. He had spent centuries teaching that physics was finished, that faster-than-light travel was impossible, that humans were children lost in the dark. And now, in front of his students, in front of the galaxy itself, a single human vessel had shattered his every word. For the first time in memory, Master Velrek looked afraid. He whispered under his breath, almost too softly to hear, "No, this cannot be." Daniel Cross sat 2 rows down, watching him closely. The proud, unshakable figure who once mocked him now trembled. Daniel had waited for this moment, dreamed of it in silence. But when it came, it was not triumph he felt. It was something colder, heavier, because fear was more dangerous than laughter. On the display, alien commanders barked orders in panic. Fleets scrambled to regroup, weapons firing wildly at the Dauntless, but the human ship flickered in and out of space, reappearing miles away in the blink of an eye. Each time it fired its strange white beam, another vessel crumbled. It was not a battle. It was a demonstration. The Talari commander's voice broke across the comms. "What weapon is this?" "What sorcery?" Captain Ward's calm voice answered. "It is not sorcery. It is science. You claimed the laws of physics were final. You were wrong." His words were like knives. Velrek staggered back a step, his staff scraping against the floor. The cadets stared at him, their expressions twisted with confusion and betrayal. Their teacher had promised them certainty. Now his certainty lay in ruins. One cadet, the insectoid who had mocked Daniel before, hissed nervously, "Master, what you told us? This was impossible." "You said humans were fools." Velrek's jaw tightened, his eyes darting toward Daniel. In that moment, the elder's fear sharpened into anger, desperate to cover his weakness. He jabbed his claw toward the human student. "This is your doing." Velrek roared. "You knew." "You deceived us all. Your people are liars," the cadets murmured, some nodding, others shaking their heads. Their world had been broken. They didn't know who to believe anymore. Daniel rose slowly from his seat. His heart pounded, but his voice was steady. "No, we are not liars. We are explorers. We asked questions when you stopped asking. You laughed at us. You told us the universe was finished. But the universe doesn't end just because you're tired of searching." Velrek's face twisted with fury, but behind his eyes burned something worse, terror. He had mocked humanity with confidence. Now his words looked like chains around his own neck. His students, his reputation, his legacy, shaken in a single day. On the dome, the Dauntless prepared its final strike. Surrounded by alien fleets, it pulsed once with strange energy. The space around it rippled like a pond. Gravity bombs detonated uselessly. Plasma bolts tore through nothing but void. Then the white beam fired one last time. A Myran battleship cracked apart, splitting into 3 silent fragments. Its glowing banners flickered and died, and then, just as calmly as it had entered, the Dauntless transmitted a final message. The games are over. With that, the human ship vanished, folding into nothing. The battlefield went quiet. No trace remained but the wreckage of the galaxy's finest warships, The amphitheater erupted in chaos. Some cadets shouted in awe. Others screamed in anger or fear. The noise crashed against the crystal walls like a storm. Velrek tried to raise his staff to calm them, but his voice cracked. "This means nothing. One ship proves nothing. Do not be deceived by their tricks." But the cadets no longer looked convinced. Many whispered among themselves, stealing glances at Daniel. Doubt had been planted, and once doubt took root, it could never be removed. Daniel stood tall, his voice quiet but cutting through the noise. One ship was enough, Velrek froze. For a heartbeat, his mask slipped entirely, and the cadet saw the fear in his eyes. The elder who once laughed at humans now looked small, fragile, and uncertain. The galaxy outside trembled. Empires would question their dominance. Armies would wonder if they were prepared. Scientists would scramble to understand what humans had done, and inside the academy, Master Velrek, the voice of unshakable truth, stood hollow. His laughter was gone. Only fear remained. Daniel sat back down slowly, but he knew the silence wouldn't last. This was only the beginning. Humanity had spoken, and the universe had listened. What came next would decide everything. The Kalis expanse was littered with wreckage. Broken hulls drifted silently, their once glorious banners dark. The alien wargames, meant to show the might of the elder races, now lay in ruins because of one small, grey human ship. The Dauntless reappeared at the center of the battlefield, its engines glowing faintly. It did not fire again. It did not move to attack. It simply hovered there, calm and unshaken, as if daring the galaxy to look closer. Billions across the stars watched the broadcast in silence. The cadets in the Academy amphitheater leaned forward, breathless. Even Master Velrek could not find words. Then Captain Elias Ward's voice carried across every channel, steady and clear. "This is not conquest. We did not come to enslave or destroy. We came to remind you, the universe is not finished. Physics is not complete. You said faster than light travel was impossible. You said space could not be bent. You were wrong." The words echoed through the amphitheater. They echoed through cities, colonies, and stations across the galaxy. Ward continued, "For centuries you called us primitive. You mocked our rockets, our colonies, our short history among the stars. But while you laughed, we worked. While you declared the universe complete, we kept searching. And now we have found what you would not see." The cadets whispered in awe and fear. Some scribbled notes frantically, trying to capture every word. Others simply stared, their beliefs collapsing like sand beneath their feet. Ward's voice grew sharper. "Do not mistake our silence for weakness. Do not think that because we hid our strength we had none. We did not speak of our discovery, because we knew what fear it would bring. But today you forced our hand. You forced us to reveal what should have remained hidden longer. And now you will remember it." The comms fell silent for a heartbeat. Then his final words cut through the void. "Do not threaten Earth again. The next war will not be a game." And with that the Dauntless vanished, folding into nothingness. The amphitheater erupted. Cadets shouted questions, accusations, and fears. The noise rose into a storm. "They have broken the laws. No species should have such power. If one ship can do this, what if they build a fleet?" Velrek's staff slammed against the floor, but his voice carried no weight. "They are reckless, dangerous. Humanity has unleashed something they cannot control." But his eyes betrayed him. He was not angry. He was afraid. Daniel Cross sat in silence, his chest tight. He had expected pride, triumph, maybe even satisfaction. Instead, he felt the heavy weight of what humanity had just done. The whisper was no longer a secret. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. Beside him, the insectoid cadet leaned close, mandibles clicking nervously. "Tell me, human, how long have your people had this power?" Daniel met his gaze calmly. "Long enough." The cadet shivered and leaned away as if the answer itself was dangerous. Velrek pointed a claw at Daniel. "This is why humans are dangerous. They hide, they lie, and then they strike. If they can bend space itself, what else are they hiding? What else do they dare to do?" But the elder's words rang hollow. The cadets no longer looked at Daniel with contempt. They looked at him with caution, even respect. In the coming days, the galaxy would reel. Empires would meet in emergency councils. Scientists would abandon their old equations, scrambling to understand the impossible. Armies would whisper about new strategies, about weapons that could counter the whisper. If such things even existed, fear spread faster than light itself. Back on Earth, the crew of the Dauntless stood before their council. Dr. Elaine Torres watched Captain Ward with pride and exhaustion. "The message is delivered," she said quietly. "Now the galaxy knows," Ward nodded grimly. "Yes, but knowledge is a weapon, and once a weapon is revealed, it can never be hidden again." The council chamber fell into uneasy silence. Humanity had stepped out of the shadows, proving themselves not weak, not primitive, but dangerous in ways the galaxy could barely understand. Daniel's message from the Academy reached Earth soon after. They are afraid. Velrek has no answers. Their certainty is gone. The council members exchanged looks. Some smiled. Others frowned. One elder whispered, "Fear will keep them back for now." But fear is also the seed of war. Ward stared at the stars on the holomap, his voice low. "Then we must be ready. They thought we were children. Now they will treat us as rivals, and rivals always prepare for war." At the Academy, Velrek sat alone in his chambers. The mighty teacher who once laughed at human ignorance now trembled in the dark. His staff lay discarded at his side. The galaxy did not sleep. Across star systems, broadcasts replayed the same terrible images, the Dauntless bending space like fabric, slipping through attacks, shattering dreadnoughts with beams no one could explain. Governments called emergency meetings. Armies moved fleets to new positions. Traders whispered of a coming storm. On worlds from the core to the fringe, one question echoed: what are the humans capable of? For the first time in memory, it was not the elder species who stood as untouchable. It was Earth. At the Grand Academy, the chaos of the battle had not faded. Cadets filled the halls, their voices a constant storm. Some cursed the humans, calling them reckless. Others spoke in awe, already imagining a new age of discovery. But all agreed on one thing: the universe had changed forever. In the amphitheater, Master Velrek sat slumped on his chair, his staff resting forgotten against the wall. His scales looked pale, his eyes hollow. The teacher who once laughed at human ignorance was now silent, staring at the floor as though answers might be carved into the stone. Daniel Cross entered quietly. The noise of the cadets outside seemed far away. For a moment he simply stood, watching the elder who had mocked him so many times. Velrek finally spoke, his voice low and brittle. "You should be proud." "You have destroyed me." Daniel shook his head. "No, not me. Truth did." Velrek's eyes lifted, filled with something between rage and despair. "Truth." His claws trembled. "Truth is fixed. Truth does not change. I built my life on certainty, and you have shattered it with your chaos." Daniel stepped closer, his tone calm but sharp. "No, you built your life on stopping. You told yourself the search was over. But the universe doesn't stop just because you decide it does. We kept looking when you gave up." "That is the only difference." Velrek's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, but the words would not come. For the first time in centuries, he had no answers. Daniel leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "You laughed at us. You told us we were children playing with fire. Maybe you were right, maybe we are. But children grow, and when they do, they change the world around them. You cannot stop that." "Not anymore." Silence filled the room. Velrek closed his eyes. For the first time, he looked smaller than Daniel. "Then the galaxy will burn." Daniel straightened. "Only if you force it to." Outside, the galaxy trembled. The Talari fleet recalled its soldiers, shaken and humiliated. The Miren Council demanded answers, their pride cut deep by the destruction of their battleship. The Union of the Veil began secret meetings, whispering of coalitions to contain humanity before it was too late. But in hidden corners, other voices spoke differently. Scientists who once mocked humans now studied Earth's equations in awe. Explorers dreamed of what lay beyond, of doors humanity had already begun to open. Young cadets whispered about joining Earth's research teams, eager to chase the unknown. Fear spread, but so did hope. On Earth, Captain Ward stood before the United Council of Nations. The chamber was quiet as he gave his report. "The galaxy has seen what we can do," he said firmly. "Some will fear us, some will hate us, some will try to destroy us, but others will listen. Others will learn. The choice is not just theirs, it is ours. We must decide what kind of power we will be. Dr. Elaine Torres added softly. We broke their certainty. That makes us dangerous, yes. But it also makes us leaders. If we use this power only for war, then Velrek was right to fear us. But if we use it to push the universe forward... She let the thought hang. The chamber was silent. Humanity's next step would not just shape Earth, it would shape the galaxy. At the academy, Daniel walked the halls. Cadets glanced at him with wide eyes, some with respect, others with dread. He was no longer the human they mocked. He was a symbol of the future they could not yet understand. One young cadet, trembling, asked him quietly, "Is it true? Will your people share the secret?" Daniel paused. He thought of the whisper, of the Dauntless, of Captain Ward's warning. Then he shook his head. Not yet. The galaxy isn't ready. The cadet looked both disappointed and relieved. As Daniel turned the corner, he heard Velrek's voice echo faintly from behind. Cross. He looked back. The old teacher stood in the doorway of the amphitheater, his staff shaking in his claw. His pride was gone, his voice weary. Perhaps I was the student all along. Daniel gave a small nod. Then learn. Keep asking questions. That's all any of us can do. And with that he walked away, far above. The stars burned on. They had no care for wars or pride or fear. But among them a new truth now lived. Humanity had proven the galaxy wrong. The elder races trembled. The young looked to Earth with awe. And everywhere one question burned like fire. What will the humans do next?